Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to go into Python and we're going to create a script where in the command line we can create maybe a super secret message and then we'll encrypt it. In the command line we'll decrypt it, or maybe we'll just generate a key in the command line. There will be different options that we can do, and I'll show you my plan on doing that. And this kind of comes from a comment. It's really old now. I saw it a while back and that got my mind spinning. And I appreciate all the comments, all the questions. And I said this before, but if you have a question, feel free to share it. I may or may not get to it, but if I think that I can answer it, I will go ahead and make a separate video on that. And that's what I'm doing today. I can't find the specific one, but someone want to know, how do we encrypt a message in command line and then also decrypt it that way? So if this stuff interests you, by the way, don't forget to hit subscribe. I got this guy right here saying this will help him get high grades in computer science. I was not the best computer science student by any means. Actually, in my second year of college, I switched to computer science. This was no way in my radar. And then it kind of just clicked, I guess you can say, and I liked it ever since. So I appreciate it. If you like this, yeah, don't forget to hit subscribe. And let's just hop into it. I made a video a while back, by the way, encryption, and that's where this specific question came up. I haven't watched that video in so long, and it was created like over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago by now, I forget. And I thought I'd just make a whole fresh new video. We'll forget about that. I don't know if this is much similar, but I don't think it is, just because of the fact we're doing it in command line. So the first thing I want to do is I have VS Code here, and I'm just going to create a new Python file. So we'll just save it, and let's call it encrypt.py. There we go. And then something else I want to do is I want to install cryptography. So we'll see if this works. Pip install cryptography. There we go. Okay, I didn't know if I already had this installed or not. It doesn't look, yeah, it doesn't look like I do. So good. We installed that. Get rid of this tab. And let me zoom in a bit too. Okay, hopefully this is zoomed in enough for you guys. It's a little too big for my liking, but that's what she said. So if you didn't watch my last video, by the way, this is going to be using some of the concepts I talked about in the last video, where we talked about the argv and how to extract arguments from a command line prompt. When I go to run this, I can pass in arguments as well, and then we can take those arguments and do something with them. I haven't named the video, and it hasn't been released yet. It's just called argv, but you'll hopefully see the title and know what I'm talking about. So what we actually want to do first is import sys, and this is how we can grab command line arguments from the user. And I'm just going to clear this down here, this terminal. And then something else we want to import is from cryptography. I know I'm going to spell this wrong. .fernet. Cryptography? Yeah, that looks right. Import fernet with a capital F. And maybe the first thing we want to do, and this is how I thought of it, the first argument that they can pass in is what action they want to take. And then depending on that action, they might pass in a second command or a parameter, whatever, and they might not. So let's just go ahead and grab the first argument the user passes in, which is going to be what are they going to do. We're going to call that arg, and then that's going to be argv, or no, I'm sorry, sys.argv. And that's going to be the first index, or not really first, index number 1. The first index is 0, but we skip that because that will return what the name of the Python script they're running is. We don't care about that. So what we can do is we can, based on this argument that the user passes in, we can do different things. So maybe I want to say if arg, and let's just do arg.lower, because they might, use different cases, and we want to cater to all those cases as long as they give us the right argument. If they capitalize the first letter or whatever, we shouldn't have to care about that. We should be able to do what they need to do. So I'm going to say if this equals key, and this is going to be the action of I want to generate a key. And so my thought process for this, and you might want to do something different, it's up to you, but I want to put the key that we generate, and you can think of the key as a password, into a text file. That way we can retrieve it whenever we want to encrypt something or decrypt something. It'll be there waiting for us. And that's what this argument is going to do. It's going to generate that key, write in a text file for us, so we have it in the future. So actually, I just want to create a function, and I guess I'll call it create key. And we're not going to take in any parameters into this function. We're just going to create our key. So it's fernet.generate and then underscore key. For some reason, IntelliSense isn't working. So let's just make sure. Maybe we should just make sure this works. So I'm just going to say hello if it's key, and let's just do. So the IntelliSense was worrying me, and I didn't know if this was actually working. So I just printed out hello, and it looks like, yeah, it is working. So I don't know. Hopefully this works. So it'll generate the key. And then the next thing we want to do is just open a file, or in our case, create it since it's the first time, and write into that file this new key. So we can do open, and then our location. So I'm just going to call this pw.txt. And then we want to give it write privileges. We're just writing to it. And then we can do file.write and then key.decode. And the reason we're decoding it is because the key is actually in bytes, and when we decode it, it will turn it into a string, and it can write to the file. So instead of printing hello, let's just go ahead and create the key and make sure this works. So we'll run this again. And you can see this new txt file popped up. Let's open it. And here is our key, or you can think of it, like I said, as a password. Okay, so that works. So the next thing I want to do is else if arg.lower is equal to encrypt. This is where I will take in a second argument. And right off the bat, I'm just going to make it an empty string. And then if they choose to encrypt something, I'm going to say arg2 is equal to sys.argv and then index of 2 to get the second parameter that they pass in. And then we can go ahead and create another function, and this will be the encrypt function. So you can say definition of encrypt, and I'm just going to say word or your words, whatever. That's what we're going to pass in. And like we did before, actually, I'm just going to copy this line. And instead of write, we're just going to read. Because we're not actually writing. We're just reading the key, and then we'll use that key to encrypt something. So then we can say key is equal to file.read. And then we need to turn it back into bytes, because if you remember, when we decoded it, we turned it into a string, so we could write it to the file. And now we kind of have to do the opposite. We need to turn it into bytes, because when we encrypt, it expects the key to be in bytes. And actually, before we do that, we use the key to generate what I call the engine that will encrypt our string for us. So it has to be in bytes in order to do that. So here's our engine. I'm going to call it F. That's going to be fernet. And then key.encode, and then the encoding, which is ASCII with 2 I's. And then I'm going to make another variable called encrypted value, or val, which is equal to f.encrypt. Encrypt, and then what we're going to encrypt, which is word. Or words. Maybe words is, yeah, maybe words is better. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. We also have to encode words, because it itself is just a plain old string, and we need to encrypt bytes. So in order to turn it, like I said, into bytes like we did with the key, we need to encode with ASCII. And now we can just print to make sure. And I spelled encrypted wrong, didn't I? Let me put an N in there. Okay, that looks better. Let's see if this even runs. I'll be surprised if it does. So instead of key, we already have the key made. Let's do encrypt, and then test is going to be our string to encrypt. Oh yeah, duh. We need to encrypt arg2, right? The second argument we pass, and we have to run this function that we just created. So let's try that again. Oh, wow, it actually worked. And here you can see it's in bytes. Because encrypted value is in bytes, we can do decode again if we don't want to just read it, and see that it works. So let me put that in save and run this again. And here you can see it's no longer bytes. It doesn't have that preface of a little b. And here's just a bunch of gibberish, right? If you were to send this to someone, they'd be like, what the heck is this? What kind of drugs are you on? And that's good. That's what we want. We want them to think we're on drugs. Okay, so lastly, maybe I should make another if statement, an else if statement, I guess. And we can say if arg lower is equal to decrypt. What are we going to do? We're going to set arg2 equal to sys. Actually, we can just copy this whole thing again. Might be easier, just type it out. And then we'll probably just create another function and kind of do the same old spiel. So in our case, the second argument is going to be maybe this, and we want to say, okay, what's the value of this? And it's going to be test, hopefully, once this goes through. So let's create another function and call it decrypt. More words, or maybe in this case it's like letters, a bunch of characters. Not just letters, I guess. Characters. How about that? And we're going to do something very similar. I'm actually going to, I think, do, let's just do all of this. And let's just paste it right here. And let's think about this. So we're going to take the key. We also need the key again to decode. So that's right. We're going to take the key. We're going to make our engine. Instead of encrypt, we want to decrypt. And then what are we decrypting? We're decrypting characters, which have to be in bytes. So we're encoding it again. And now let's just print that. Print encrypted value dot decode. Maybe this should say, instead of encrypted, decrypted. How about that? Does that make sense? I think so. So instead of encrypt, we're going to run decrypt on this if statement with argument 2. And let's see, we want to instead put decrypt instead of encrypt when we run this, decrypt. And I'm just going to copy this, what we created earlier. Make sure not to get a space. I'll copy that and then paste that right here. And I'll be very surprised if this works first round. Holy crap, it did. It put test. Wow. That was pretty good. Let's try it again. Let's try it with a longer string. So we'll keep the same key. You know, if we wanted to, we could create a new key. If maybe we want to do that daily because we want to be secretive. And then we're like, you can only read this for a day with this key. Or I don't know. You can think of your own fun little things. But instead of test, let's do a longer string. Let's, this is all a dream. Let's try that. Okay, so here's our new encrypted string here. So I'm just going to copy that. And then instead of encrypt, before, let's just get rid of all this. And then paste the new one. And it says, this is all a dream. Look at that. This works like a dream, I'll tell you that. So I hope this answers whoever asked that question. And a fun little project. I thought this was fun. Hopefully you enjoyed it too. Maybe you learned something. And moral of the story is, whenever you want to do something with Fernet and the cryptography, it's got to be in bytes. I got a lot of questions on that first video. Maybe I didn't explain it enough that, you know, the string you want to encrypt has to be converted to bytes and all this stuff. But I think I made that clear when we pretty much turned everything into bytes and then back to a regular string. So thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the next one.